Good afternoon, Krys and Phil.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Beatrice.
Bonjour.
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 Since we worked together at building the Blue Woman FuMar music tour in February 17 in Paris, I'd like to ask you a few questions in order that your audience or our audience can grab what's so special about you and your music.
Great.
Okay.
First of all, when and how did you meet, and under what circumstances?
Krys.
Right. We met in 1970 in Manchester. We were students together at the University of Manchester. So we've known each other for 46 years now. Phil?
Krys had a car and we wanted to have a lift into the uni. So we thought he'd be a good guy to have as a friend.
I was the taxi driver.
What study were you following in Manchester at the time?
I was studying metallurgy.
Phil was a real scientist. He was doing metallurgy. I was doing history and sociology of science. I was interested in different things.
Right.
And we both went to many concerts. We went on Thursdays and Sundays. We went to classical music concerts at the Halle Orchestra, very cheap tickets for students. And on Fridays and Saturdays, we went to rock concerts.
Yeah, we saw some really famous bands. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I'm waiting for Krys to get one of these portable keyboards so he can strut across the stage. Emerson did in those days, and that's where we got the idea, because Emerson, Lake and Palmer did a classical piece, didn't they?
Yeah, did they do pictures from an exhibition?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
and it was so wonderful. I mean, that idea has always been in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, how many languages do you know well? I mean, that enable you to communicate with someone else, music included, of course.
2. Music and English. I'm very ashamed to say, even though I was brought up in Wales and taught Welsh in schools, I'm terrible at languages.
And what about?
Yeah, I know English, French, German, and Polish. So 4 languages.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that's a good tool. These are good tools to communicate.
Yeah.
It means when I go to France, Krys does all the communication and I can just relax and think about the music, you know.
But here in England, he does all the communication, so I can relax.
Yeah.
Phil, if you agree, I will prepare some quiz for you so that you can after my documents in French, so that you can.
Well, I've been
your French and.
I've been told. I've been told by my partner here that I have to learn French. So after December, when we finish our 2016 concerts, then I'm going to start with gusto learning French. So when you see me in Paris, nous parlez français.
Okay. The sound has gone a little.
The sound's gone fuzzy.
Oh, it's much better.
Better now? Okay. Anyway, so you can test his French in 3 months.
It's because I was speaking French, the sound went fuzzy. Even the microphone rejected it.
I will. I'm quite curious about where you currently live, and what is your favorite place to stay or to be, and why? And does it have an impact on your music production?
Well, I live in Paris, in France, in an area of Paris called Belleville, which has lots of musical cafes and places where you can go. One of the ones I like to go to is a slam cafe, which is just up the Rue de Belleville. Has a very open stage. People play there, read poetry, concerts more or less every night, and they make good tea. So that's where I go.
Okay, so I live in Cumbria, in the north of England.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful, very rural. My house, at the back of my house, looks onto a field with sheep, and the front of my house looks onto Scotland, the hills of Scotland. I get a lot of inspiration from a small church in North Wales, on the Llyn Peninsula. I go there every year, and a lot of my compositions, early compositions, were developed in that little chapel. But I think, excuse me, I think the most creative time that Krys and I have had together was in Grey, when we went there for 6 days, and we spent 5 days solid creating music. It was beautiful. Right.
It's Grey-sur-Loing, right?
Yeah, Grey-sur-Loing, which is near Nemours and Fontainebleau.
That's right.
Beautiful place. Yeah.
We need a complete no distraction from anybody or anything, and then we can just concentrate, immerse ourselves in what we're doing. It's lovely, and we can
I understand. So it's funny because it appears that you feel you live in England. Krys lives in Paris and in Toulouse, I think, as I understand. But where you create is another place. It's in Grey-sur-Loing.
Yeah.
Well, is that what you're saying? Is it your favorite place to compose and play together?
It's one of our favorite places because this year we had the opportunity to be together without a concert coming up the next day or in 2 days' time. And when you have 3 or 4 days in front of you, you can experiment and you can work on compositions and stuff like that. And we did that in Grey in June. We did it in Belleville in April, where we worked out the early sketches of some of the songs that we recorded. And we did it during our tour in September in the countryside near Toulouse. So we had 3 really nice occasions to, be away from everybody and just concentrate on the music. Yeah.
And what about England? Do you sometimes meet?
Yes,
we play, but also to compose and be quiet and.
Krys is here in England now. We just did a concert last night in London, which was very nice. He's coming back in 3 weeks up to Cumbria. We've got 2 concerts, so I'm hoping that we can get some time. But when we did our priorities, our main priority is our partners. So if our partners are around, then they're a distraction. So we need to be in a place without our partners, because then we can just concentrate on ourselves, and that's where our best creativity has been done. Nothing against our partners; we love them both dearly, but that's for me. We have to totally immerse ourselves in what we're doing.
Okay. When I first heard your music, that was in Grey-sur-Loing at Mike's. It was a little more than 1 year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was very touched by a certain softness. I would say, in French, I would say douceur or délicatesse.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come from? Well, from yourself, of course, but I mean, yeah, where does it come from, and why do you play that this way, your music, and would you qualify yourselves, I mean, as a duo, as soft composers and players?
Well, Krys, keep on. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I don't think I'd. I don't know. I don't think I'd qualify that's what we're trying to be. People say that a lot of people say that our music is quite melancholic and meditative or something like that. I think in my case, it comes from my father. He was a composer, and he was Polish, and a lot of Eastern music is kind of melancholic, and it's very often in the minor mode. And so I guess that as a kid, when I was growing up and he'd play the piano and improvise and stuff like that, you know, that was kind of going in all the time. Then I think also it's I love the Brazilian bossa nova music. That of course is very kind of soft and stuff like that. So that was maybe my first entrance into being able to play with Phil. And if you look at our early repertoire, maybe 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of standards that we were playing that were like that. Yeah. So Phil.
Okay, so my playing very emotional. I had a tragedy.
Yes.
And that comes through the playing, I think. They say in the blues, if you have to break a leg, if you could before you can play the blues. But I've broken a leg, and I think that's inherent in my playing. It's my therapy. So that's I think that could be the answer of the saxophone. I try and get out of that mode. In fact, last night when we prepared the set, we did it through an emotional. We described each tune in an emotional description, and we had happy, and we had melancholy, and we had sad, and we had exciting, and we tried to disperse the whole range in the performance. But when I discussed the performance with my close friend Beverly, who I stayed with last night, Beverly and Andy, they said that the ambience of the music all the way through was the same. And that's very interesting. We have to now think about the ambience of the music rather than the mood of the music or the emotion of the music. So it's something to think about. So what you're describing is the ambience of the music, and yeah.
So we're a duo, you know, and I mean, you will ask us these questions about how we formed and everything a bit later. But when you have a duo with a wind instrument and a keyboard instrument, which is for me either the piano, real piano, or some kind of electric or something like this, then the pianist has to do three things. He has to give the harmony, he has to give the pulse, the rhythm, and he has to give the bass, you know, which normally if we had 4 musicians, we'd have all that. You know, I'm also, you know, like an amateur. I've come from no special professional music background or anything like that. So, and the hardest thing to do when you're a pianist is to have rhythm and bass and, you know, a very lively accompaniment. So it was an easy way, if you like, into the music. But I'm working hard to get those other 2 dimensions coming in. So we're adding things to our repertoire that have a lot of you know, swing and a lot of funky stuff and things like that. But people seem to hear overall the kind of melancholy and soft.
Well, yeah, there is what I feel and hear is that yes, of course, there is melancholy because I don't know how old you are exactly, but let's say a little over 60, and you've had experience of life. Life is not pink.
Yeah.
Let's say not all the time. Not all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. Well, we can talk about it another time. But there's something very soft in you.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm sure it
Okay.
I'm missing words in English, but I'm sure it feeds your music, not only on a melancholic theme, but also when you play bossa nova, also when you play when you fuse classical with jazz, etc. This, well, for me, it's one of the distinctive aspects of your duo, of your music.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the pianists that I like are pianists who understate, you know. They try to make really nice music with not much, you know, not many notes. People like Rand Blake, you know, somebody like John Cage, if you take very, you know, contemporary music, I mean, classical, you know, from the 60s. I mean, you know, you can do it without having to have a thing. And so if you really listen to the sound, you can do something with just one finger or two fingers that sounds nice. You don't have to bang away.
And maybe it's I don't know if it's conscious or not, but maybe it's a reaction to the acceleration of and quantity of data and everything that, you know, that has been happening since internet has come into our lives, and everybody is really tired with this overwhelming of data coming from everywhere, and it seems that your music is I'm not saying simple, but it goes to simplicity in order to offer maybe calm and some kind of peace and some, you know, something clear.
Yeah,
that's nice.
That's really good.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Really good. I think that's what we try and do, because when we live with a song for 2 or 3 or 4 years, which now we have been doing with quite a lot, when it evolves, it always evolves towards a more and more simple interpretation. So yes, you're right about that.
Yeah. Well, the word we is minimalist. We try to be minimalist.
That's right. Like art brut and arte povera in art plastique.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that idea. Well, that's
good.
what I like in your music anyway.
Thanks, Beatrice.
Thank you. That's great.
Okay. Well, and the next question is you've partially answered it, but can you tell us about your compositions? Where do you find the ideas? How do you get to agree, and how do you make your ideas come real? Is one of you the leader or natural leader, or are you co-leaders? That's interesting in terms of managing your own team.
I think in terms of the creation of the duo, and you know, making sure that we keep evolving and developing and just getting us together and keeping us together. Phil is the leader.
Really?
You know, he had the impulse, and he's made it happen, and it's been, and we've been friends for, you know, 46 years. So and we're both Leos. We're both born in August, so we have lots of affinity. We don't need to say much, you know. So I think, to me, there's no question about that. And in terms of composition, the 3 or 4 compositions that we've worked on, which have arrived since we've been playing together, have been, sometimes Phil has an idea, you know, and he brings it along and we play around with it, and something happens, I add something or whatever. Sometimes I have an idea, and either we play it together, or we Skype it to each other, or we do it via some, you know, online studio thing, and it evolves, and I just think it's all very, you know, positive and beneficial, and I think it's really kind of composition, the things that we've worked on. And we worked on some more songs in September, 3 in fact. And it was the same process. So to me, it's really easy working together and composing together. And when we put our 2 names on it, I think it's really a kind of fair, statement.
Okay, so everything that Krys says, I'm in agreement for, but let's just go through the process. There's 2 tunes that we have published that are completely our own. The first one is Sunday Morning in Paris, and I came to Paris with the chords that I played on the guitar and a melody line. And then Krys turned that into the beautiful piano chords and how he plays the chords himself. So that's how, and that came about on a Sunday morning in Paris. And then the next, Grey on the Water, that came about because Krys had a motif that he sent to me, and I liked it, so he sent it on an iPad video, and I was thinking about how we could use this in a piece, and then when we went to Grey, Krys went out, and it was appalling weather, and he went out to get the croissants, and he couldn't get them because the money machines were all down because the flood in them, and when he came back, I wrote the words to the tune. The floods are so terrible.
Mattresses in the street, and the words became a melody because suddenly there was a rhythm, to the sentences.
So the melody line then came, and then Krys put the chords to the melody line.
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there. So we had the motif that Krys started off with, that became the introduction and the outro, and then we had these words which described our feeling at the time, which was very strong because the floods of Carlisle had a big impact on me, and then Krys's knowledge of chord structure, and that just that was the big strength. So and the 2 came together, and it was really wonderful how it all happened. Yeah.
And the danger, I suppose, we're kind of really not we haven't got 50 or 100 or 1,000 songs or anything, but I can imagine that the danger is that you think, oh no, man, this is possession. I composed this. But that's fine. We throw things out. We throw something out if we think if the other guy says, oh, that's not really good, that's not the right thing, or we should do it differently. I think you have to keep that kind of open attitude. Yeah.
The classical pieces that we're playing, fusing with jazz, that the ideas come from the classical piece. I mean, and then we both chip into how they develop, but we can't take credit for the work of Fauré and Beethoven and Satie. They're the 3 pieces that we do, and Bach. We're just stealing their music openly, and it's a wonderful resource.
But the Bach, in fact, it's an architectural innovation, which is that you take existing elements and you put them together, and you combine them in a completely novel way. We've been playing the Corcovado, for 5 years in a classic bossa nova style, and in January I really got into. I decided I wanted to play Bach preludes, and the first prelude is quite an easy one for any pianist, I guess. So that was one that I knew I could play. And I kept saying to Phil on our Skype conversations, hey Phil, we've got to do something with this Bach prelude. Yeah, we'll do something. And then when I came over 3 or 4 months later, he said, "Oh, Krys, I've got a really good idea." And his idea was to use the Bach prelude over the first, the theme and motif of Corcovado. And it fits together absolutely with some nice dissonances, but it fits together really, really, really nicely, So it's different, we haven't kind of done something totally original with the Bach, but we've combined two pieces of music in a very novel way, I think, and people quite like that. Yeah.
True, and it's as I share with you, Krys, the one of our passions is for innovation and management of innovative projects. I find it interesting to watch really any innovation appearing since internet exists, and it's always interesting to remember who created the wheel, who created
Yeah.
Inventions,
Yeah.
all the work of
course, yeah,
Leonardo Vassi,
Yeah.
of all these great innovators. They really mapped the exactly like Bach and Corcovado. It's exactly the same. It gives us such a culture, an enormous culture that we're not always aware of, but it's in our memory, in our brain, and sometimes it matches with something new, sorry. And it works perfectly.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have another interview on that specific item.
Yeah, good.
If you agree. Okay, next question is well, that was it. In fact, next question is exactly about you both have a strong background in innovation and education in universities.
Mm-hmm.
How does music relate with all this knowledge and experience, and also to technology? Now that you're retiring from your professional positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually a teacher, a physics teacher. That's my profession. I moved into to universities to do schools outreach. But being a teacher, you have to learn lots of skills, management of time, project management, and also IT skills. And also, I was playing I've always been playing in a band for since the age of 40, and so I think being a teacher, you've got the ability to be able to learn these skills. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. I'm bringing to the table. I can, but the IT skills of the music recording and production, I can do all of that sort of stuff, which is essential for the creation, for the process of producing the music. Now, Krys brings another set of skills to the table from his work.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what they are.
Project management.
I think the most important thing is the idea of prototyping. That's something that I can transfer directly from all of the stuff on innovation, and it's the idea that you should keep a very open mind when you're working on something, which could either be how are we going to interpret this, or we want to make an arrangement, or we want to compose something, I don't think that you just or certainly neither of us can just sit down and write something that's absolutely perfect in 5 minutes. And so you start with a rough idea, and you must keep on experimenting and trying out, different ways of doing it, and trying them out in a concert format so that you see how people react. And in a concert format, sometimes you you do things that you don't do when you're playing in a studio or when you're rehearsing, you know, because there's such a tension and excitement in the air that when you take a risk in a concert, you really take a risk in a concert, because if it goes wrong, you know, it's not good. So so I think that's really what I like, and then like when you're innovating something, if you're lucky, you create something that reaches a form where you no longer need to change anything, and it becomes kind of stable, you know. And that's good. You've done your work on that, and you've achieved something stable. So, for example, Phil recorded an album in February with a very, very good classical pianist, a concert pianist, of pieces of classical music, with Phil playing on soprano, and we have 2 or 3 of those in our repertoire now, and one of them, which is the Gymnopédie by Eric Satie, has evolved considerably from the way in which it was recorded 6 months ago with a classical pianist, to the way in which we're now interpreting it. And it's maybe still not totally stabilized, but it's very near. And then you feel, well, that's it, you know, we've made a nice kind of nice kind of product with that. So that's one dimension about the innovation, I think, is to do with the object that we're working on, which is like making music, you know. Then there is a whole technological aspect, which Phil, you know, has all sorts of wonderful electronics that he can tell you about.
Well, yeah, it's the wonders of science. But in order to develop a tune, then, you know, I have a bass guitar, nice bass guitar, so I find a nice bass riff, and I can put that down, record it, and then I can play that back, and then I can put something else down, and you build up a layer of, just like an artist does, really, build up a layer of stuff, and then I can send those ideas to Krys, and I can say, look, what do you think of this? So that's where the technology comes in, and I can make posters as well.
That's right, and you can also play with the barbecue, I understand.
Ah, now then,
oh,
yes.
Yeah.
that was a very interesting project, which is, again, that could be an interview in itself. But I've had over 1,300 views for that. So if you go to YouTube and Phil Furneaux, then you'll get the barbecue video.
I know, I've seen it twice or 3 times already. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm a real fan.
Oh, great. Share it with the world, Beatrice. See if I can get 2,000 hits.
Okay. Okay. Next question is, well, maybe you answered it already. Then you might be you might skip it if you like. Why did you decide to combine art, in the sense of arts and crafts, which is art plastique in French, with music?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can do this. So when I first, my belief has always been that if you're playing music, then you have to play to an audience. There's no point in just being in the practice room for the rest of your life. Music is a communication tool. It's just like speaking. There's no point in being in a room just speaking to yourself. There's no joy in that. So when I was starting to develop the music that was enabled me to recover after my tragedy, then I wanted to do a concert of the album that I produced, which is A Real Distraction, and I wanted to have a backdrop of my daughter's life while I was playing that, and I went to an art exhibition in Nice, where Jean Miro, was exhibiting, and I was totally excited by this work, and it's actually the first time I've been totally excited by art. But Beth is really into art, and I go to galleries because of her. Not anymore, but Miro's work, and one of the bits of work was of Miro was called Dancer, and Kate was a dancer, lovely dancer. So I called the tune Funky Dancer, and I put this this image up of the dancer, and I asked the audience to interpret what they can in this image of a dancer, because for me it didn't look like a dancer at all. And then I played another tune that I wrote, which is
25 things.
No, it's not 25. But then I used images from Miro, which I'd taken on my mobile phone and put them together, and played it during the tune, and that's where the art came from, Beatrice. That's where playing music and art and interpreting images with music and vice versa. That's where it started.
Okay, Krys, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that what interests me is how an artistic approach can help with the composition and interpretation of a piece of music. And so instead of having a score, with lots of music, like where you have a piece of piano or violin or something like that, actually having it more conceptual, and using visual arrangements, two-dimensional visual arrangements, to do things. And I was looking. I was in a museum a few weeks ago. Sorry, that was my glasses. A couple of weeks ago, and I saw a painting by Paul Klee, the Swiss painter, and I immediately thought this can be a piece of music, So maybe next year we will create something on the basis of that, because I think there are many nice ideas that could be transformed into musical form there.
Great, can't wait for that.
But when we met you at your house, did your concert, Beatrice, the fact that you were an artist and had very exciting exhibits on your walls, and your effervescent and exciting personality, we thought we'd like you to ask you into the project of art and music. So now you're leading us. We want you to lead us.
No, I'm not a leader. No leader, as I understand, there's no leader.
We lead each other. We lead each other. Yeah.
The word leader is doesn't fit with what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I understood.
Right.
Okay, but thank you for including me in your work, because it's a great pleasure. That's a very quick question. 1 or 2 words as an answer, please. In which countries would you like to perform next, apart from France and London, where you already go?
Can we sort of have realistic countries and unrealistic countries?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Even other planets, if you like.
Other planets is fine. I think I'd like to do something in Africa, I think, for sure. I'd like to do... I'm thinking of the kinds of music that would be attractive. I'd like to do something in some Middle Eastern countries as well. I like the music coming from there. In Europe, maybe Finland, Spain, Poland. That could be some places. I'd have fun going there.
Oh, and Phil?
Well, I really enjoy playing in Spain. I did a very nice concert in Toledo. I'm looking forward to going to Finland because we're going there in beginning of April.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'd like to see is actually in Vermont. I've been to Vermont twice in the USA, and it has a very, very lovely, cool, calm atmosphere. Very environmentally aware, very laid-back people, and I think our music will be received well there. So I've got a kind of idea that Krys and I could do 2 weeks in Vermont, taken to the streets. That would be maybe 2018.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, good.
But
sounds exciting.
But Beatrice,
Yes.
I really like the French audience. The French audience is so much nicer to play to than the British audience.
Really?
Yeah, the French audience, the audience faces express the music you're playing, their emotional state of the music.
Mm.
The English audience will receive it, but you can't tell from their facial expression whether they are receiving it nicely. You can only afterwards when you get the applause and the feedback after. But the French audience, you know while you're playing that the people are enjoying the music.
Mm.
It's very nice.
We have an expression in French that says, literally in English, it would be, we are sometimes victims of our educations, right? It has to do, I think what you're saying, it has to do with education.
Well, Phil's very lucky because he's the solo saxophonist, so he's looking at the audience. Very often I'm looking at a wall because I'm playing the piano, so
right.
I have no comparison of that. Yeah, I have no comparison of that. But no, we've played maybe 15 or 20 times in France now, and it's been great. It's really good responsive audience. Yeah, really good responsive audience.
Okay. You're in London right now, as I understand. What are you working at the moment?
Well, our sound producer called Duncan Thornley. He's our main man. I think without Duncan we wouldn't have got this far now.
No.
He's a magic sound man, and we've given him we said, okay, Duncan, we're booking you for the day. We're in your hands. And he's come up with the idea of that we're going to do Wind Cries Mary. Last night, for the first time, we did a cover of Wind Cries Mary by Jimi Hendrix.
You know? Yeah.
And Krys's piano was just absolutely exquisite. So we're going to try and capture that.
Good.
So there you are. We'll know more at 6 o'clock this evening because it's the project for the rest of the day. But otherwise, yeah, yesterday we had a concert here that was really nice. Yeah, it was really good.
Okay. How do you communicate with your fans, and how can we follow you?
Facebook, FuMar Music.
Facebook, FuMar Music. Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
But we're writing a website. We've employed somebody to do a new website. We're going to meet him when Krys comes in December. We're going to have some nice photographs taken. So that's going to be the major point of
entry.
Yeah.
There will be an actual website dedicated to our duo.
And we'll be able to do blogs, and we'll be able to do all sorts of things because it's, Beatrice, when we're together, it becomes so exciting. We have so many ideas, and it's like a love affair, when you want to make the most of every minute, and it's great. So if we have a fan base out there then I mean, hopefully it will grow. We've got 60 likes on our FuMar Facebook page, FuMar Music Facebook page. So our target for next year is to get that into 3 figures.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 figures.
3 figures. So we might have 100 fans.
100. 100. We open the champagne.
Okay. And at 999 likes, we open 9 bottles of champagne.
Absolutely. That's a promise.
We have a big party.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and last but not least, I have prepared a little more personal question. Among the 3 figures, 1, 2, and 3, which one do you feel closer to, and why? And please give me a very spontaneous answer.
3.
One after 3?
3, yeah.
Who said 3?
Me.
You, and why?
Well, because it's always a triangle. Things are bouncing off. It could be 1, 2, and a piece of music, or it could be me with a piece of music and my idea of a piece of... Yeah, there you are, 3.
I've never even considered it.
Good, that's why.
I've never ever thought of that. But
that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, you clever girl.
I like Krys's answer, so I have to go for 3 as well.
No. It has to be your answer. No copy paste.
Well, if I said 1, I'd be a trump, and I'd just be thinking of myself. If I said 2, I'd be thinking of myself and my music. If I said 3, my music and the people around it. So it has to be 3. It has to be 3.
And why?
Because music is a communication, so you have to communicate with something else, or someone else. So you have 1 is yourself, you have 2 the instrument you're playing, and 3 whatever you're playing too. So it has to be 3.
Really good question, Beatrice.
Well, it could be 1,003 if you're playing in the Albert Hall. That'd be 1,003.
Okay, thank you very much for...
Thanks a lot, Beatrice. Yeah,
and I wish you all my greetings for Best Magic Tour, not only in Paris but in London now, and we'll see each other very soon to go on with building this fabulous project.
And thank you for working with us.
Bye.
And thank you,
Bye,
Beatrice, for your questions and your creativity with the whole thing.
Thank you for your answers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Oh, really good.
Okay, Beatrice.
Really good, Beatrice.
You've given us some times. I haven't looked at it, but hopefully we'll talk soon.
Okay, sure.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, Beatrice.
Bye-bye.
Super.
Turn this off now.
Well done. Okay, where's our man?
Oh, what's happened here? This has gone off.
What?
Shit.
Has it?
I don't know when that stopped.